Last time, we ended up with Master Roshi putting his all into the Greatest Kamehameha, which unfortunately caused him to pass away after using it. As the smoke clears, everyone would be looking around to see if this worked in defeating Goku once and for all or not. Unfortunately, for the heroes, they noticed movement under some of the rubble, as Goku is able to stand, but just barely. Even though Goku is weakened, the hero's power level still wouldn't match up against Urine's, so their only choice would be to flee for now. From there, since Krillin obviously wouldn't give him senzu beans, it would take time for him to heal. After he does heal, he definitely would have gotten a Zenkai boost from his injuries. Seeing how Goku was beaten to near death like he was in the Saiyan saga, I'll say he got a similar boost after the fight with Vegeta, which, according to the Movie 6 pamphlet, his power went from either 8,000 or 9,000, depending on if you're following the manga or anime, to 10,000. So, with a similar boost to that, his new power becomes 390. This would normally bring us to the 5-year time skip up to Raditz, but since Piccolo Jr.'s egg was still spit out, I'm going to make the time skip a 3-year one instead, which means it would be age 759. Normally, the 24th World Martial Arts Tournament doesn't happen until age 767, but since the arena wasn't destroyed and more people aren't coming to the tournaments, there isn't a reason to build a bigger arena. Thus, there isn't a reason to postpone the tournaments. Also, since Goku would have taken King Piccolo's spot as King of Earth, he'd ensure the tournaments still go on, so he can keep his title of champion and still fight strong fighters. Though, since Goku likes to fight strong fighters, he would have stopped destroying areas every year like King Piccolo did, so there's more people that can potentially become strong fighters. In the next 3 years, Goku and Urine would have gotten married and had their first child around the same time Gohan was born. I wasn't sure whether to make their child a son or a daughter, so I flipped the coin, and it came up as a son. For the name of their son, since Urine's name comes from Yulin Chi, which is Chinese fried chicken, I looked at Chinese food to find a name. The name I come up with was Xiaoji, which is just part of the Chinese word for fully roast chicken. I tried to draw them, but that art turned out terrible in my opinion, so from now on I'm just going to use Gohan as a placeholder for them. As for the personality of their child, it wouldn't be anything like the personality of Gohan or Goten. He'd probably be devoted similar to how Urine is, but also probably get some of the personality traits that Goku got after a while, like the arrogance or ruthless nature. Unlike Gohan, Xiaoji would train, since Urine wouldn't mind him training with Goku, unlike how Chi-Chi didn't want Gohan to train. So, when age 759 comes around, Goku and Urine would be going to fight in the 24th World Martial Arts Tournament. Xiaoji would be there to watch the fight, but at this point he wouldn't be ready to participate in fights like this, since he's only 2. At this tournament, Piccolo Jr. would also show up, with him wanting to get revenge on Goku and Urine. This doesn't mean he's good though, as he still wants to conquer the Earth for himself. So, his plan would be to defeat Goku and his family, and take back his rightful throne as the Demon King. The remnants of the heroes, which are Tien, Krillin, and Yamcha, would also be at the tournament, just as the last-ditch effort to try and take both Goku and Piccolo Jr. down once and for all. Master Roshi and Shatsu wouldn't be there for the reasons that they couldn't be revived anymore, and they don't know about the Namekian Dragon Balls. As for the last 2 fighters, I don't have anyone specific in mind for it, since this tournament never happened at this point in time. We don't know what other fighters would have been alive to join it, so I'll just call them Fighter Number 1 and Fighter Number 2. Also, I won't get into the power of the fighters until it comes to their fight. Also, since we've never seen this tournament, I actually have a good reason to completely randomize the fights instead of just, it'll make a cool story. Anyway, the fights for the quarterfinals of the tournaments will be as follows. Match 1 is between Urine and Yamcha, Match 2 is between Goku and Krillin, Match 3 is between Tien Shinhan and Fighter Number 2, and Match 4 is between Fighter Number 1 and Piccolo Jr. So, for figuring out how strong Urine got, she would have had to have taken time off for training once Xiaoji was born, for obvious reasons. Though, besides the time they took off, she and Goku would have been training harder than Goku did in the 5-year time skip before Raditz. They would only be training harder because this version of Goku would keep training to keep up the image of him being the best fighter. Also, as much as he hates to admit it, the last fight was closer than he expected it to be, since he almost died. So, he trains harder so it can't happen again. Anyway, with him training harder but also taking her time off because of the pregnancy into consideration, I'll say her power goes up with a similar boost to what Goku's did in the 5-year time skip. So basically, they got stronger faster because of the more intense training, which would bring her power up to 415. As for Yamcha and the heroes, they also would have been training intensely to try and take down Goku and Urien, though, since we wouldn't have had to take time off from training like Urien did, I'll make his boost slightly higher, so his power would have gone up from 179 to 250. I'll also say the other heroes' power at this point. Krillin's would have gone from 181 to 253, and Tien's would have gone from 271 to 379. Anyway, on to the fight. When Yamcha goes against Urien, he would be far outclassed here power-wise. In this fight, no matter what technique he tries to use, whether it be the Wolf Fang Fist or the Kamehameha, it wouldn't work against Urien since he is outclassed. Since both she and Goku were taught to be more brutal from King Piccolo, and since the rule King Piccolo stated about killing being allowed is still in place, she would be brutal in her method for taking out Yamcha. I'll say it's like when Android 20 punched a hole in his chest, but this time no one can interfere in the fight to save him like they did in that saga. So, unfortunately for the heroes, we're already down another fight or one match into this tournament. Obviously this is going to anger the heroes and upset Bulma since she and Yamcha are still together at this time, so all they can hope for is to win in the end so they can revive him. This brings us to the second match between Goku and Krillin, which obviously wouldn't be a friendly match like the ones they've had against each other in the manga. With the intense training in the past 3 years, his power would have gone from 390 to 546, which, unfortunately for Krillin, means Goku's over twice as strong as his old best friend. So, this fight would be a losing battle for Krillin from the start, but he would give it his all regardless. Goku in this fight would be brutal and relentless when attacking Krillin, barely giving him time to counterattack. This fight would go on like this for a while until he eventually gets bored of this fight since Krillin would be no match for him. When he does eventually decide to kill him, he would use some brutal method, though I'm not good with coming up with brutal methods like that, so I'll just say something like how Tambourine killed Krillin. Again, this is another unfortunate thing for the heroes since in the first round they already lost two of the people on their side. Basically, their outlook for being able to win this is getting bleak, since Tien would most likely realize he'll be outclassed against either Urien or Goku if he makes it that far. Speaking of Tien, his match is up next against the unknown fighter number 2 I mentioned earlier. Since some relatively unknown and weak fighter, there isn't a reason to go into detail with this fight. Tien would win just by easily knocking this guy out of the ring. The same can be said for the next fight between fighter number 1 and Piccolo Jr., since there isn't much of a reason to go into detail with it. Though, since killing is allowed in his reincarnation of King Piccolo, the fight would most likely end with him killing off the relatively unknown fighter. So, this brings us up to the semifinals of the tournament, with the matches being as follows. Match 5 is between Urien and Goku, and Match 6 is between Tien and Piccolo Jr. Since they are husband and wife, this match would be a very friendly one, though that doesn't mean the two of them will hold back against each other, though when the fight starts, they would start slow, just trading blow for blow with each other. It'd power up slowly over time until Urien reaches her full power, so Goku would stop powering up around that level as well. Since he stopped powering up to match with their level, they would go blow for a while, potentially even having a beam struggle with the explosive demon wave to end off the match. Obviously, Goku would win this beam struggle, thus knocking Urien out of the ring, thus earning him a spot in the finals. Since I didn't go into Piccolo's power for his last match, I will for this one. Since he was the reincarnation of King Piccolo, he'd probably have an idea of how strong Goku is. So during the last 3 years he would have caught up to Goku in power, also bringing his power to 546. So when he fights against Tien, he wouldn't stand a chance against the reincarnated Demon King. He'd try to use a technique where he'd divide himself into 4 like he did against Goku in the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament in the anime. While it would work briefly, Piccolo would eventually catch on to it and notice that each copy is only 1/4 as strong as Tien. So, he would take each one out one by one, though when he gets to the real Tien, he would likely kill him. Since if he doesn't, and if Piccolo wins against Goku, Tien could still go off and train, potentially becoming a threat in the future, so he kills him instead. This basically leaves the heroes hopeless, since the only one of them left is Bulma, and she isn't a fighter. She'd most likely flee to try and come up with a plan to take down Goku. We might see her later, but as of right now she's going to flee so she isn't killed too. This brings us to the finals, with the 7th and final match being between Goku and Piccolo Jr. This fight would be like their actual fight from the manga, with Goku being much more brutal in his fighting methods this time around. Anyway, since their power levels are equal, the fight just starts off with him going blow for blow this time around. Piccolo would still stretch his arm out to try and grab Goku, though he throws him up into the air. While he is recovering, Goku jumps after him, just gets shot down into the ring with multiple blasts from Piccolo. Though instead of faking being down like Goku did in the manga, he'd just go right back to rushing at Piccolo. They'd start going blow for blow again, but eventually after Goku does his little trick of disappearing behind Piccolo and hitting him into the sky, Piccolo still gets to the point where he charges the blast to destroy the ring. This time, Goku won't be worried about the people in the stands getting hurt, except Yurien and Shaoji, so he'd tell them to run, and once they do, instead of diverting the blast, he moves out of the way of it, thus allowing it to hit the stands, destroying them and killing the public. The tournament announcer and other staff members likely would have been killed in this too, so the tournament is technically over, but the fight continues nonetheless. Afterwards, they still have their beam struggle between the exploding demon wave and the Super Kamehameha, Goku's beam overpowering Piccolo and hitting him dead on. Though, Piccolo still survives his blast, but he's a little worse for wear after it. This would anger Piccolo and he'd turn into his giant form as per usual. The fight would go basically the same with Goku flipping him over and then taunting him, which causes Piccolo to make himself grow even taller. Though, eventually he realized he was doing worse at that height and shrink back to normal size. Again, they'd go blow for blow with each other for a while, but the longer it goes on, the more both their stamina starts to drop. With Piccolo's anger boiling over, he'd still be able to cause Piccolo to hit himself with his own blast that was following Goku wherever he went. Piccolo, being even more angry now, would resort to using the hyper-explosive demon wave to try and take out Goku. Though, as usual and to his surprise, Goku survives his blast after blocking it. From there, he resorts to using his meteor combination and the Super Kamehameha to weaken the reincarnated Demon King even more. So, when Piccolo was lying within the crater, Goku could then follow through on his plan. He would know he couldn't kill Piccolo, since that would kill Kami, and would stop them from being able to use the Dragon Balls if they ever needed them. So, Goku would try and steal him with the Mafuba/Evil Containment Wave. You'd probably be thinking how Goku knows this move, but we've seen Goku copy moves before after only witnessing them once. Also, if Stan was able to learn it just by watching it, be used and practicing it, Goku could most likely do the same. So, instead of giving Piccolo the chance to get back at him like he did in the manga, he starts using the Mafuba to steal him away. Since Piccolo would be highly weakened at this point, this would work, and he'd be sealed away in the jar just like Kami was. With the announcer and staff being dead, there's no one to declare the winner, so Goku would probably declare himself the winner of what's going to be the last tournament. Afterwards, he and his family would go back to their home, because the heroes are dead and Bulma fled. There isn't anyone there that they have to worry about getting in their way. Once returning to King's Castle, they hide the jar containing Piccolo away with the one containing Kami. From here, the future of Earth would be a bleak one, as no one on the planet is around to get in his way. However, there's still more to explore with the story, as unbeknownst to them in 2 years' time a mysterious warrior will be arriving from outer space. So, there's where I'm going to end this part for right now, with Goku having basically become champion once again. He also finally took down the heroes once for all. Though, will Bulma be able to come up with a plan to take down the tyrants that are Goku and Yurien? As for the mysterious warrior that will be showing up, which we all know is Raditz, how will Goku react to him this time around? Anyway, if you want to see more of these videos, please do like this video and subscribe, as it lets me know that I'm not wasting my time by making more of these.